And welcome back to another episode of Tidal Flooding Talk, brought to you by the New Jersey Coastal Coalition in conjunction with our broadcast partners at Tri-X 57. We come to you every Tuesday with new episodes all about what's happening in the world of tidal flooding. And our guest for today is the American Coastal Coalition. But before we get to them, we're going to turn it over to our co-host, Palma Shiles, Dan Skeldon. We are in March. March for me brings my least favorite weather of all time, which are 50s. I hate 50s. Like, why? If it's going to be in the 50s, it might as well just be cold or warm at that point. But my favorite weather besides like nice beach weather is snow in March. I love some March snow. So, Palma, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't like the in between either, pick a side.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's fine because you're still like wearing your hoodies and sweaters. But I do remember a lot of nasty storms we've had over the years in March. So,
yep. We had that 4 Easter in 2018. We had 4 nor'easters in the month of March. Also, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's a thing. Like, March is when, like, if the sun's out, it's hot in the car, but then it's like cold outside. So like you have your jacket on when you go in the car, and then you're like, hey, I got to turn this off. I got to take this jacket off. Like, I might have the windows down. And then when I go outside, I'm like, damn, it's cold. Anyway, Dan, what's happening? What's going on?
Yeah, March is a fickle month. I mean, I love the volatility of Mother Nature that's on display during the month. You can get into the 80s, or maybe not along the beach in New Jersey, but
definitely not.
You can get 70s and 80s, but you can get Arctic air, you can get winter storms. The good thing about March snow is it doesn't last. Although I will say, having lived in Ocean City for 15 years and now up in the Lehigh Valley of PA for the last 5 to 10, I do appreciate spring a little bit more because, like you said, March, it's tough to get spring and the warmth down to the shore. So spring is a better season, the farther inland you go.
Right. And what is it? Spring hopes eternal? Spring rests eternal?
You say, yes.
That's what they say. All right. Anyway, let's bring in our guests. We'll see how they feel about the month of March. But we have Howard Marlowe and Dan Ginolfi from the American Coastal Coalition. Howard Marlowe is the founder of the American Coastal Coalition. Dan is the executive director. Founded in 1996. We, as the New Jersey Coastal Coalition, are friends with the American Coastal Coalition. We're both Coastal Coalition buddies. So welcome to the show, guys. Appreciate you being on.
Thanks so much for having us.
I feel like in a certain way, it's like that Spider-Man meme where we're like two of the same people pointing at each other because we're both like in the same lane of what we do here. So why don't we just like kick it off with like a 30-second elevator pitch? What is the American Coastal Coalition and what is the main focus of your organization?
Sure. Thanks again for having us. The number one mission of the American Coastal Coalition is to represent coastal communities nationwide with a special emphasis on beach nourishment. So those are coastal communities like you have in New Jersey, from Cape May all the way up to Sandy Hook. Sandy Hook's not a municipality, but nonetheless, they have a shoreline and it does erode. So the primary thing that we do is work with those communities, with legislators. We work on the federal side. We don't do state work, but we lobby Congress, really advocate and educate members of Congress about the importance of our nation's beaches. And help drive federal funding. These projects are done by the Corps of Engineers, which requires a lot of federal money. In the state of New Jersey, for example, it's the DEP that partners with the Corps of Engineers. The localities pay a share of that. But bringing that money to the state is really what enables the state to do its beach nourishment projects. So in New Jersey, the state really relies on the federal money to come through. It's a little bit different in every state you go to. Some are counties as the non-federal sponsor. But in the state of New Jersey, it's the DEP, Office of Coastal Engineering.
My question, guys, is the New Jersey Coastal Coalition was founded, due in large part after Hurricane Sandy. Well, was there a storm or a spark? Like, what was the impetus that led, or maybe just the need and like the lack of any other such organization? But what was the impetus that led to the founding back in the 90s?
Well, at the time during the Clinton administration, there was really an all-out push to get rid of the beach nourishment program. And that really is what brought coastal communities together. I can let Howard talk about that for a moment, but basically, you had an administration that really wanted to shut down the coastal program at a time when coastal science was really realizing the value of beaches and dunes, particularly dunes, and their ability to mitigate impacts from coastal storms.
Efforts were made in the late 1990s by the Clinton administration to, as Dan said, totally do away with the federal program of assisting communities with beaches. Beaches are storm damage reduction projects, and we pulled communities together. Now our threat is the fact that in 2025, no money went to beach nourishment at all from the federal government. So the circle has come around in full circle. And we need the American Coastal Coalition now as much as we did back in the 1990s.
I think when people hear beach replenishment, they automatically think sand. But could you explain to us why it is actually flood protection?
Sure. I mean, if you just search photos from Hurricane Sandy, probably the first thing you're going to see is Manahawkin, where the ocean literally met the bay. And that's a combination of both oceanside activities from Mother Nature as well as bayside, actually. And so from a hydraulic perspective, you can't do half an island. You really have to do an entire island to build up a barrier that can protect the whole island. On the bayside, you have to get bulkheads raised. But on the ocean side, you do have maybe some bulkheads that are buried deep below the dunes, but really the dunes are the number one thing that prevents the big ocean waves from impacting houses and roadways and public utilities.
So just following up on that, do you think that there's a messaging problem around this? Because like to Palma's point, like the beach replenishments do help with flood mitigation and, but I think most people do think of, oh, well, we're just extending, more sand for us to land the beach that gets washes away. I don't know. That's kind of my gist. Do you agree with that? Disagree with that?
The sand does wash away, but the point is you spend 10, maybe $30 million, which sounds like a lot of money, to bring in billions of dollars in revenue. So from a business case, it's worth it. And people do see a lot of that sand does wash away. What they don't look at is the period just between May and September. These coastal communities in New Jersey bring in billions of dollars of both federal and state and local tax revenue. So the business case is there.
I always look at it from the standpoint that that beach is your best protection from wave damage. There is no better protection other than a seawall. And you can't lounge on a seawall, that's true, but it actually can't do as well in absorbing the energy as sand can with a good dune. And New Jersey has great dunes in their beaches.
Yeah. Wait, what's your favorite dune in New Jersey? You have a favorite one, Howard?
Oh, around Long Beach Island, I think.
Long Beach Island? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, good. I have to say, I was actually just talking to somebody yesterday about Barnegat Light, which is at the northern end of Long Beach Island. Mm-hmm. Their dunes there are incredible. You guys ever seen this? Palma, you ever seen the dunes in Barnegat Light? They are massive. It's like, I feel like it's like you're in like Vegas. Like if you ever do those ATV tours out in Vegas and they have like the big going over the sand, it's crazy. It really helped, very protected there. And they didn't have a lot of damage, relatively speaking, during Sandy. All right, we're going to take our first break. We're going to come back with Dan and Howard in just a minute here on Tidal Flooding Talk. Thanks to the New Jersey Coastal Coalition, your flood insurance bills are lower and your streets safer from the reality of flooding. Since beginning in 2013, we build more resilient shoreline communities. Our member towns develop and share in best practices that anticipate future concerns and create flooding solutions. From our town-specific free web app for flooding information to our weekly Tidal Flooding Talk show, we focus on flooding 24/7. Visit www.njcoastalcoalition.com for more.
Hello and welcome back. You are watching Tidal Flooding Talk. We are brought to you by the New Jersey Coastal Coalition, and we would like to remind our viewers to protect natural floodplains. Floodplains like salt marshes and stream beds are nature's way of managing floodwaters while improving the environment. Help them do their job. Reduce boat speeds to minimize erosion, use fertilizers sparingly to protect water quality, and limit hard surfaces in your yard so rainwater can absorb naturally. A little effort goes a long way in protecting your community.
Awesome. All right. We are back with Dan and Howard. Gentlemen, so in terms of, your partners, on the congressional level, how does that work with identifying members of Congress who are supporters of the American Coastal Coalition? And then, this is not a political show, but just kind of, I'm sure there's people from different sides of the political aisle you're trying to bring together. How does that generally work?
As a coalition, everything we do is nonpartisan or bipartisan. We try and stay nonpartisan. But generally, we reach out. We look to all members of the House and Senate and say, you are a member of representing a coastal district or a coastal state. You have a beach nourishment project or several in your state or in your district. Is this something that you're interested in? We genuinely ask, and we do get a good response. There's a House Coastal Communities Caucus that exists on the House. There's nothing in the Senate. We'd like to have something in the Senate. But generally, the beaches are something that everybody enjoys, whether it's a red or blue state. So, in New Jersey, we've had really strong support from Senator Andy Kim, Jeff Van Drew, Frank Pallone. These are big players. New Jersey is one of the largest recipients of beach nourishment funding. There's a lot of other resilience issues, whether it's stormwater, even developing emergency operations center, whatever it may be. All of those members have been really instrumental in bringing funding back to New Jersey. And we see the same thing in South Carolina, even Georgia, which really only has, a very small number of beaches. Their delegation members get together, they make joint requests, they all ask for beach funding. Same thing in California. So I think generally, we leave the door open. We also do proactive outreach. And any members that want to be a part of the American Coastal Coalition are welcome to join as a coastal champion, or just simply support us through the various missions that we have. And there's ways that they can do that.
Now, what have you found to be the most effective way of communicating with these decision makers, no matter what side they're on, to understand what you're supporting?
I think it's important to, members recognize we can't really put the toothpaste back in the tube when it comes to building too close to the ocean. Which in some cases there are instances where we have, but these are now multi-billion-dollar economies. And so when you look not only at the numbers, at the metrics, at the economics, but also the amount of public infrastructure that's at risk, it becomes fairly obvious, I think, to any legislator to realize that this is not only a place that people enjoy, that they live, that they vacation in, but there is a lot of there's a massive coastal economy. 50% of the U.S. population lives within about 50 miles of the coast. So I think it's something that really hits home. People from Chicago, Ohio come to the Jersey Shore and other beaches. So it's something that really everybody shares.
Is it a harder sell with lawmakers, let's say from Kansas or Nebraska or landlocked states where it doesn't really necessarily impact them, so we're not interested in it? I think it's great that you're apolitical and you said both parties have cut this funding before. So how do you sway those those people out in the breadbasket, the Midwest, which may not necessarily themselves or their districts or constituents benefit from your goals?
The beach is the largest attraction that we have in this country. We did a survey several years ago in a North Carolina community, not a large one, but a big enough one, and a big enough one to have visitors coming from every congressional district in mainland USA.
Wow.
And so we point out to people in Kansas or whatever other state it may be that's inland, that their constituents are going to the beaches for recreation, and they ought to be concerned about it. And it does resonate with them. Water is in general, a bipartisan issue.
Yeah. So what's a typical week like for you? How often are you in Congress meeting with representatives? Are you traveling around the country meeting with representatives? What does a week look like for you guys?
Sure. We are on the go. We're traveling just about monthly to different communities. We work with Congress, at a minimum, have contact 2 to 3 times a week. We're pushing certain letters right now, support letters for beach nourishment funding. We're doing working with individual members on community project funding, which is basically earmarks, which is individual projects that each member, both in the House and Senate, can request and deliver money back to their respective districts or states. So, it's a full-time job. Communicating.
I hope so.
With well, for the viewers, there's other things that we do in the coastal space, and we won't get into that now, but it certainly adds a lot to the lobbying work that we do outside of the other jobs that we do.
Interesting. Okay. Hey, let me ask you this. When you're in Congress, anything cool about walking the halls of Congress that most people wouldn't know?
Oh, I think it's just very cool to be in the halls of Congress.
Oh.
It's just the feeling that you get, quite frankly. The buildings are very special. They're not your average office buildings. Even the newest of them still feels separate and special.
Okay.
But the older ones that we have really are great buildings. You just don't build them like that anymore.
Okay. Have you been to the White House?
Yes.
Okay. How was that?
Oh, amazing.
Okay. Go ahead, Dad. Sorry. I was getting all giddy.
Oh, Washington's an amazing place. I think it's great that you guys have access to that and you're fighting a good cause in these beautiful places. I guess my question is what's your plan of attack, like with the $0 allotted for this, for this upcoming cycle as far as beach replenishment goes? Like, where does the battle stand right now, and where are your efforts focused?
So right now we're currently moving into we're actually in FY26. We're already looking at FY27. FY25, we're sort of, that's really already passed. A lot of those projects would be ongoing right now, which is why we're not seeing any projects being constructed at the Jersey Shore right now. So the current state is that there is about 65 million total nationally for beach nourishment projects, and at a cost of anywhere between 15 to 30, even $40 million a project, that doesn't get very far. So about half of that money is already earmarked for projects in Delaware and Maryland, which leaves about 35 million total for the entire country.
Wow.
That puts the Corps of Engineers in a really difficult position of having to decide which projects get funded and which don't, because there are eroded beaches all over the country and a lot in New Jersey. So what we're trying to do is, like I said, we're in FY26, but we're already looking at FY27. So for FY27, we're again honing in on that $200 million annually. That's the figure that we'd like to get to. Jeff Van Drew actually just introduced a bill that would establish a coastal storm risk management trust fund at $1 billion. It would fund beaches as well as other projects. We're getting members of Congress together to do joint letters to the Appropriations Committee asking for $200 million. But that's the figure that we're targeting, and we're working all avenues to get to that. If we get $200 million, that basically funds every beach nourishment project in the country at the level it needs to be at. So that's a figure that we've come up with after over about 30 years of tracking all coastal funding.
Wow. Awesome. All right. We're going to take our last break here. We'll come back on the other side on Tidal Flooding Talk. Thanks to the New Jersey Coastal Coalition, your flood insurance bills are lower and your streets safer from the reality of flooding. Since beginning in 2013, we build more resilient shoreline communities. Our member towns develop and share in best practices that anticipate future concerns and create flooding solutions. From our town-specific free web app for flooding information to our weekly Tidal Flooding Talk show, we focus on flooding 24/7. Visit www.njcoastalcoalition.com for more.
Welcome back to this week's Tidal Flooding Talk, along with Joe Palma, myself. We are honored to be continuing our conversation with Howard and Dan of the American Coastal Coalition. Same goals that we have here at the New Jersey Coastal Coalition as well, just a much broader national scale. And guys, we focus on New Jersey, and we know, Jersey's beaches, got pretty battered this year. It was a tough nor'easter season last fall into the spring, and you deal with it nationwide. Does the geography of like who needs it the most, obviously that varies based on the weather and the conditions year to year, right?
Yeah, it does. So go ahead.
If you look at a place like California, completely different than New Jersey, right? They get, they have crumbling bluffs. They get major swells, and on the East Coast, we get major swells from hurricanes. But California, they get a totally different beast. These are far bigger, far more powerful, and they last for far longer. Their beaches are eroding as well. It's just at a different cadence. There's major risk during the winter for us. There's major risk from really during all of hurricane season, but that August, September period is, everybody's senses are heightened because there is so much risk of a hurricane, and there's not much time to prepare for it. But generally, all over the country, beaches are eroding. There's also some places where beaches are actually accreting. I just saw a report today where in total, California's beaches have actually grown, but a lot of the places where people go, there has been a massive amount of erosion, and it's for various reasons. The ultimate reason is that we've dammed up our rivers and harbors, and a lot of the sand doesn't make it back to our beaches. But Mother Nature always plays a role in taking that sand away.
Is there anything that people of the public can do to support your efforts?
Yeah, reaching out to any member of the House or Senate and urging them to support our missions is really critical. As Howard mentioned, go as far inland in the United States as you can find. You will find people who visit our nation's beaches, and in many cases, those are public beaches. All federal beaches are required to have public access, so it's something that anybody in the United States can go to.
I think it's very important for people to realize that the power of the individual is the most important thing to think about. The American Coastal Coalition, we are based on local communities. Those communities obviously have individuals who are members. The more the people speak up to their members of Congress and say, that beach that we have is important, or that beach that I visit, be it one day, 1 week, 1 month, a year, is important to me, the more we're going to get Congress to respond and realize that beaches are extremely important to the American economy and to sea level rise and all the other things that are extremely important to us.
Got it. And looking ahead, we have about another 2 minutes here. Like, I know you said you're looking ahead to the fiscal year budget in 2027. Is there anything else you guys are like really trying to get at? Is it the bill that Congressman Van Drew has proposed, like really trying to get that word out to other Congress members? Is it fundraising? What is like your top priority over the next 12 months?
It's getting to that 200 million. When we have a year when there's, let's say, 150, you might get 5 out of the 6 projects that need to get constructed, but maybe of those 5, they got 80% of the sand they needed because the Corps had to make the decision to cut a bunch of projects 20%. And so, for example, Long Beach Island only got 85% of the sand that it should have gotten during its last renourishment, and they're also hotspots. So making sure that that basket is full and as full as it needs to be is really essential for these communities to get the sand that really they've prepared for. They've got their money on hand, ready to go. These are 50-year partnerships with the federal government. And when the federal government doesn't show up, not only does it leave a bad taste, in the non-federal sponsors, for the non-federal sponsors, but, it's the federal government needs to do its response, do its part and be accountable for those 50-year partnerships that it's signed.
Wow. Okay. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being here. We're not done with you yet. We'll get into the one thing we can't stop talking about, but just tell everybody where they can find out more information about the American Coastal Coalition and support the group.
Sure. Our website is www.americancoastalcoalition.org. Please check us out. We are active in nearly every coastal state and would love to have your support.
Awesome. All right. So we are going to get into the one thing we can't stop talking about, tidal flooding or otherwise. Dan, can I start with you? What's on your mind?
I meant Dan Skelton. We got 2 Dans on here.
Yeah, I know. I should have made a mistake. Dan G, do you want to go first? You already guessed.
I'm going to let Dan Skelton take this one over.
Okay.
Well, I just, coming up first week of March, I guess I am just excited and can't stop talking about the extra evening daylight coming with Spring Forward this upcoming weekend. And, lose the hour of sleep, but gain the hour of daylight is sure sign that we're getting past this tough winter, hopefully with no nor'easters in March, because as we've been talking about, our beaches are already battered enough. March is known for its lion-like storm. So hoping for that extra daylight and a quiet March.
Palma?
I think I'm going to second that, and it's only because I hate driving in the dark. So if it could stay light, or stay light a little bit longer, I'll be happy with that.
That's a good thing.
And I wonder, like, they keep talking about getting away with the daylight savings, or is that ever going to happen?
There's a new proposal out there, actually, that's going to move it a half hour ahead, which is even more confusing if you ask me. That's like a bill I think someone in Florida proposed, but I don't think it's ever going to be permanently agreed upon. Just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I don't know. I go back and forth on that because I think the way it is now is probably good, but it is like, I think we'd all be happier just have one time. Anyway, I have a DC related one, the one thing I can't stop talking about. So I'm doing I do audiobooks. One of them is called Divided Highways. It's about the history of the U.S. interstate system. As part of it, they have a chapter about the building of Washington, D.C. I did not realize that Washington, D.C. has like the widest like streets in the United States. Like some of them are like 160 feet wide. Dan and Howard, I mean, when you guys cross the street, I mean, must take forever sometimes. I'm trying to think of DC, but I can't think of. Apparently, these roads are like the widest in the country.
Yeah, Pennsylvania Avenue and Constitution Avenue were built real wide, and the Formula of Pierre L'Enfant.
Yes.
And there's a lot about DC that is unique.
Okay.
Yeah, I love DC. I visited, I think actually March of last year, and I'll tell you what, I would actually pick that over going to New York City anytime.
100%.
Oh yeah, if you come at the right time, you'll hit the blossoms, cherry blossoms.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. I've been there. I think I've been there 4 times, maybe 3 times for the cherry blossoms. Yeah, it's a cool time to be in DC. Cool time to be in DC. Anyway, Dan G. We'll now kick it over to you. We'll wrap it up with Howard at the end. So go ahead, Dan.
Well, in the theme of everything thawing out of this winter freeze that we had, I can't even get my dog to go run outside because it's all covered in broken up ice. So I'm really looking forward to that. So she can just go on a run. She's sliding all over the place.
Okay. All right. That's fine. Howard, what's on your mind?
What's on my mind is looking forward to warmer weather.
Okay.
I think it's time that we got warmer weather. We've had, certainly in Washington, and I think you've had your share of it as well. It's some of the worst winters that we've had in many, many years. So I want some warmer weather. I can think of the beach and think of it as something that's right around the corner.
Right. And we'll think of the American Coastal Coalition while we're on the beach with those warmer days. So
get you guys some towels and hats.
Yes. Yeah. No, awesome. All right. Well, guys, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate the conversation. We'll have a new episode for you next Tuesday. Remember, new episodes every Tuesday night. On behalf of Howard, Dan, Palma, I'm Joe Martucci. We'll talk with you next time.